I'll tell you why we got Roscoe. We'd read the research. Dogs are good for children with autism. Improved social communication, reduced anxiety, a relationship that asks less and offers more than most human ones do. The studies were consistent enough, and the logic made sense. My son was 17, navigating a world that didn't always make room for how his brain worked. A dog, we thought, might be something uncomplicated, a connection without the weight of social performance. What we did not fully account for was that Roscoe, at that point, was a puppy. And puppies are a particular kind of chaos. Fast, unpredictable, physical, in a way that has no regard for anyone's threshold. My son, whose own nervous system is already working hard to process the world, did not find this charming. He found it overwhelming. So the bond we had imagined, the easy, natural connection the articles had implied, was almost inevitable, didn't happen. Not then. Not for a while. I want to sit with that for a moment before I move on, because I think it matters. Because I suspect I am not the only parent who has brought a dog home for a neurodivergent child, full of good intentions and reasonable research, and then stood in the middle of a house that looked nothing like the plan. This is Under the Same Roof. I'm Jennifer Tan, certified family dog mediator and professional dog trainer, and this is episode 7. We've spent this series building an understanding of what's actually happening in households like mine, the nervous systems, the feedback loops, the stress buckets, the signals that go unread. We've talked about what the dog is absorbing, what the child is navigating, and what it costs everyone when the two of them are both struggling at the same time. This episode is about something different. This episode is about what happens when it works. Not perfectly, not in the way the research implied it would, but genuinely, quietly, in ways that are easy to miss if you're looking for the wrong thing. This episode is about the bond that looks different. What happened after those early months was this. Time passed. Roscoe grew up. The puppy energy that had been relentless began to settle into something more workable. My son, who was also growing, also changing, developed his own kind of ease around the dog. Not overnight, not through any deliberate bonding exercise, but through the accumulation of ordinary days in the same space. There was no moment I can point to and say, that's when it shifted. That's frustrating to write, because we want there to be a moment. We want the turning point, the scene where something clicks. But that's not how it happened. It happened the way most real things happen, gradually, and then just quietly. Present one day when you look up and notice it. Roscoe goes to my son's room sometimes now, not to sleep, not for any obvious reason, just to be there for a while and then leave. My son doesn't make a big deal of it. Roscoe doesn't make a big deal of it. It happens the way comfortable things happen, between two beings who have figured out, without negotiating it explicitly, that they're okay with each other. A few years ago, I came into the living room and found them on the couch together. My son was gaming, controller in hand, entirely absorbed, not performing anything for anyone. And Roscoe was tucked into the crook of his arm, just there, asleep. I want to be clear about why this was remarkable. Roscoe doesn't usually go near my son. That's still the baseline. He's generally more comfortable at a distance for all the reasons I've written about in this series. The unpredictability, the heavy hands, the voice that has no middle register. He's a cautious dog in a household that is a lot. His default is not to seek out the loudest presence in the room. And yet, that afternoon, he chose the couch. He chose that particular spot. He stayed. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to disturb it. I watched for a moment, and then I went and found my phone and took a photo, as quietly as I could. because I understood that this was the kind of thing you want to have recorded. Not because it would happen again on command, but because it happened once, and once is real. Here's what I think was going on, not sentimentally, but practically, through everything I understand about how dogs work. My son, when he's gaming, is regulated. He's absorbed in something that organizes his nervous system rather than overwhelming it. His body is still. His voice, for once, is quiet. The erratic quality that his movement has when he's frustrated or overstimulated is absent. He is, in that moment, a completely different sensory environment than the one Roscoe usually navigates around him. Roscoe felt that. Dogs feel these things, not abstractly, not emotionally in the way we'd describe it, but physically, through the stillness of the room, the quality of the air, the absence of the signals that usually mean stay back, give space. Something is unpredictable here. My son, gaming quietly on the couch, was offering Roscoe a version of himself that Roscoe had rarely had access to. And Roscoe, who is always making calculations about where it's safe to be, decided it was safe to be there. That's not a small thing. That's a dog choosing proximity to someone he usually keeps his distance from, because the conditions were right and because something in him decided to try. I don't know if my son noticed. I didn't ask. There are things in this house I've learned to let exist without commentary, because commentary changes them, and some things are better left to just be what they are. I think about the families who are in the early part of this, who got a dog for their neurodivergent child because they read the same things I read and are now living in the gap between what they expected and what they got. The child who won't go near the dog, or the dog who is overwhelmed by the child, or both of them coexisting in the same space without connecting in any of the ways that were supposed to happen. The research was not lying to you. The studies are real. Dogs can be genuinely meaningful for neurodivergent children in ways that other relationships sometimes aren't. But the research describes outcomes. It doesn't describe timelines. It doesn't tell you that the connection might take 2 years, or that it might never look like what you imagined, or that it might arrive not as a warm and obvious bond, but as a dog who sometimes goes and sits in your child's room for no particular reason and then leaves. It doesn't tell you that the moment you've been waiting for might happen on an unremarkable afternoon when nobody is trying, and that it might be over in an hour and not repeated for weeks. The research doesn't tell you what it actually looks like. That's what I'm trying to do here. What I've learned from this household, from the families I work with, from every dog I've understood more deeply through the LEGS model developed by Kim Brophy, is that bonds between neurodivergent children and dogs don't follow the arc we expect, because neither party operates on the terms we expect. A neurodivergent child's connection to a dog might not look like affection. It might look like parallel existence. Two beings in the same room, not interacting, but choosing to be near each other. It might look like a very specific, repeated ritual that the child initiates and the dog tolerates, or even seeks out, while other kinds of contact remain off the table. It might look like my son, absorbed in his game, with Roscoe asleep in the crook of his arm on a random Wednesday afternoon. And the dog's bond might not look like eagerness. It might look like a cautious animal slowly, over months, recalibrating his sense of safety around a particular person. It might look like choosing the teenager's room sometimes, not to sleep, just to be there for a while. It might look like one afternoon on the couch, unprecedented and unrepeated, that you only know about because someone happened to walk in at the right moment and had the presence of mind to take a photo. These are real bonds. They count. They're just not the ones that make it into the research summaries or the heartwarming videos, or the articles that told you simply that dogs are good for kids with autism. The bond that looks different is still a bond. It just needs someone paying close enough attention to see it. If you're in the early part of this, in that gap between the research and the reality, between what you hoped for and what you're actually living, I want you to know that the gap is not evidence of failure. It's the territory. It's where most of the real learning happens. And the bond, when it arrives, will probably look nothing like what you imagined. That's okay. The version you get is the real one. Next episode is the season finale of Under the Same Roof. I'm going to step back and look at the whole of what we've covered together, and then I want to tell you what's coming next. I'm Jenny Furtan. This is Under the Same Roof. Understanding before strategies. Always.